Welcome to today's yoga class. Our focus will be on opening up the hips as we practice our yoga today. First, take a moment to adjust your posture. Shift your weight to one side, draw the flesh out from under the sit bone, reach the sit bone back, and then rock to the opposite side and do the same. And then lifting through the waist, through the sternum, through the collarbones, broadening through the shoulder girdle. Close your eyes and take a few moments to turn your attention to the breath. Take the breath down deep into the abdomen. Allow the chest to become more passive, the abdomen to expand as you breathe in. And on the exhale, firm the abdomen up slightly. Try to find the most expansive, open posture with the minimal effort. Begin relaxing your face, your forehead, your eyebrows, the eyelids, the eyeballs, the jaws, the lips, the tongue, the mouth. Part your lips, release the bottom jaw, let your mouth hang open slightly, slack-jawed. And then very gently begin just to float your head around to the left or to the right, noticing any tight spots, any tension, and then floating just above those areas so that we don't push into the stretch. Just exploring your range of free movement. Allow the exhale to be a little longer than the inhale, and that will help to facilitate a relaxation response. 5 or 10 more breaths. Keep directing the breath down into the back or into the abdomen, while letting the chest remain passive. Take a breath or two to finish. And coming back to center. So we'll do several hip openings over the course of the class. So this first one, very gentle, not overstretching. You may find that just from a cross-legged position, that all you need to do is to lean forward slightly, and you begin to pick up some sensations in the hips, outer thighs, or buttocks. If that's the case, just hold here and explore moving around. If there's any discomfort, any unsafe, unhealthy sensations, or any strong sensations, back off as much as you need to. Another trick is to lift your knees and then with your forearms hold the knees and then fingertips on the floor. And then lean forward. So for some people, if you're having any knee discomfort or if the hips aren't cooperating, sometimes that'll allow you to lean in and get a pleasant stretch without strain. For those of you that are a little more flexible, walk your feet away from you and then experiment bringing your knees closer together or a little further apart and leaning forward until you find a position where you get a healthy, safe, pleasant stretch in the hips. Often the hip muscles respond better to some undulation when there's some change in the quality and complexity and intensity of a stretch. So rather than holding one position, experiment with backing off a little bit, breathing in deeply, and on the exhale leaning back in. Easing up on the inhale, leaning deeper into the exhale. Alternately, you can experiment with slowly shifting around to one side and then to the other side. Similar principle to how you might rock a baby to sleep. Slow, gentle, wave-like movements have a calming effect on the nervous system. Take 5 or 6 or 7 or 8 more breaths. We're trying to coax the muscles into relaxing into the stretch rather than pushing deep into a stretch that the muscles begin to defend against. So be careful not to push too far too soon. Focus on relaxing into a gentle stretch. Take a breath or two to finish. And then coming back upright. And then extend the legs. And bounce and roll. Bend and straighten. We'll be sitting with the opposite foot crossed in front now. And in a moment we'll do another hip stretch. While we're waiting for the hips though to rest and recover, come into a side stretch. Take your fingertips on the right hand to the floor. Float the left arm overhead. The hands are distractions, so don't think about where your hands are in space. Instead, chest and shoulder. Take your chest forward and up, and take the left shoulder back. If you can find your left shoulder blade, draw it back and down and lift the chest forward and up. Then let go of 90% of the effort without losing those two actions. Then take that with you into your side stretch. Flare the left side of the rib cage. Walk the right hand away a little bit. And then breathing into this position. Two or three more breaths on the first side. Coming back to center. Take your fingertips to the floor on the left side. Float the right arm. Take your chest forward and up. Take your shoulder back. The shoulder blade back and down, the chest forward and up. Hold on to those two actions with less effort. And then take that with you into your side stretch on the second side. Five or six more breaths. Take a breath or two. Coming back to center, circling with the ribs. Picking the ribs in a big circle. And reverse directions. And then roll out the shoulders and the shoulder blades. Opening into a gentle twist, leading with the right shoulder. Take the shoulder around. Find the floor of the fingertips. Cross your left hand over the opposite knee. Lift, expand, and rotate. Five or six breaths. Practicing now with a complete breath. If you're familiar with the complete back breath, start the breath in the upper back, mid back, low back, then belly. And then continue and finish the inhale into the ribs, chest, and shoulders. One more breath. And coming back to center. Leading with the left shoulder, crossing the right hand over, lift, expand, and rotate, and breathing into that stretch with a complete breath. Two or three more breaths. Coming back to center, circling, and reversing. Begin rolling out the shoulders. Coming back into our hip stretch again. So this time we have the opposite foot in front or on top. Again, if you need more stretch, walk your feet further away from you. On the other hand, if you're having trouble with the knees cooperating or the muscles, try lifting, holding the knees with your forearms, fingertips on the floor. And then leaning forward just enough to find a gentle stretch. Remember, we'll be doing more stretching for the hips as the class goes along. If you overstretch now, the muscles will tighten up and resist further stretching later. So just gently create a sensation that is subtle and pleasant enough that the body responds by relaxing, not tensing. You can undulate a little bit, lifting or leaning in, or shifting from one side to the other slowly. Stretch the exhale, 5 or 6 more breaths. One more breath. And coming back upright. Extend the legs and then bounce the knees and roll the feet side to side, windshield wipers. Draw the flesh out from under the sit bones and Dandasana, staff pose. Reach the heels away, pull the toes towards you, root through the sit bones, lift through the chest. Roll the shoulders back, shoulder blades together and down, chest forward and upward. And then, without using your fingers, lift and work the pose. If you get tired and you feel yourself starting to slump, then use your arms to maintain the length of your spine so you don't compress the lower vertebra. But our primary goal is to build strength in the core and in the postural muscles, so the less you use your hands, the better, as long as you're maintaining extension. 3 more breaths. Begin to work the breath a little bit. Draw the breath in, push the breath out. Using Ujjayi breath if you know how. 1 more breath. And then bounce and roll. So now we'll do a variation on staff, Dandasana, that activates and really gets a nice workout into the hips. So for this version, we spread the feet a little bit wider, hip width, maybe an inch or 2 wider. The tendency in staff is for the feet to splay out and for the little toes to move away from you, the big toes rotate towards you, externally pronating. So what we want to do is the exact opposite. Oh, and to point your toes. So pull the toes towards you, internally rotate the thighs. You might even be able to touch your big toes together. And then, this is the harder part, take the outside edge of your feet and bring them closer to you, and take the inner edge of your feet and reach them away from you. So we're rotating the outside towards us, the inner edge away, and then keeping that as we rotate in. And then holding on to all of that, lift the chest. Chest forward and up, shoulders back and down. And what we're looking for here is an activation up here, bringing the workout into the hips, the outer thighs. Now breathe into that. Keep reaching the ball of the big toe away from you. Keep pulling the little toe towards you. Keep internally rotating the thighs. 3 more breaths. If you start to get a cramp, bounce out. Bounce the knees up and down to release it. 1 more breath, lifting the chest. And then bounce and roll. Bend and straighten. So now we'll take the right leg and we'll cross it over the left. And then we're just going to draw that knee in with the left arm. Take the right hand behind us and then turn to look over the right shoulder. Got to hug that knee in as tight as you can. If you're tight in the right hip, you may start to pick up a stretch there. Make sure it's healthy and pleasant, not straining. Couple more breaths. And release. Straighten the right leg. Bring the left heel in. Hug the left knee in with your right arm. And then reach behind you with the left hand. Lift and rotate. And pull the knee in. Notice if your left sit bone starts to come off the ground, and if so, shift your weight over into that left hip so the left sit bone is rooted, anchored on the floor as you pull the knee into your chest and twist. Couple more breaths. And then come back to center. Straighten both legs, bounce and roll. Now this time we're going to bend the left leg and bring the heel in under us as if you're going to sit cross-legged, but then try and bring the knee over in front of you more. Then you're going to take the right foot and see if you can cross it over the left thigh. If this is difficult, bring the heel to the inside of the knee, and if it feels okay, take your foot to the outside of the thigh. Tendency would be for you to end up leaning to your left. So shift your weight into that right hip and see if you can sink the right sit bone into the floor as you lift your chest up. And then begin to draw that knee into your chest, hugging the knee with your left arm. And then with your right hand, reach behind, find the floor with your fingertips, lift and rotate. 3 or 4 breaths. Couple more breaths here. And release. Straighten the left leg, straighten the right leg, bounce and roll. Take your right foot underneath your left thigh, as if you're going to sit cross-legged, but then bring your knee in front of you, take the heel out to the outside of your hip. Take your left foot, and if you're struggling with this pose, just put it on the floor to the inside of the knee. And if it's easy for you, take your foot over the thigh and put it on the floor to the outside. Sink weight into your left sit bone. Hug the knee with the right arm. And then reach behind with the left hand to find the floor. Lift, expand, rotate. And keep hugging the knee into your chest and sinking the left sit bone down and lifting the chest up. Breathe into that with a nice, deep, complete breath. 2 or 3 more breaths. One more breath. Come back to center. And then bring that left leg around behind you as you come up into table. Hands shoulder width, knees hip width. Spread the fingers wide, cat-cow. Start each new movement with the tailbone, and then let the movement flow up the spine to the head, and then go back to the tailbone for the next movement. On the inhale, lift the tailbone, open the belly, the chest, look up. On the exhale, tuck the tailbone, round low back, mid back, upper back, tuck the chin as you finish breathing out. Try not to rush the movement. Find the right rhythm of breathing and then adjust the movement to the rhythm of your breath. And back to neutral. Improvising now. Move one hand off the mat and maybe a little forward or perhaps a little further back. And then bending your elbows or straightening or rotating, improvising. Try to create some sensations, move them around and through the body. Focus on creating healthy, pleasant sensations. Two or three breaths. Occasionally change positions with your hands and then improvise again. Four or five more breaths to finish. Coming back to symmetry for cat-cow. And then back to neutral. We're going to come into a low lunge now. In a low lunge, the back knee will be resting on the floor. And if your knee is sensitive to pressure, you can fold up your blanket and use your blanket to support the back knee. And if your knee is really sensitive, roll your blanket from opposite directions and then put your knee right in between the two rolls to give yourself a little bit more protection for the knee. Step the right foot up, bringing the foot up even with your fingertips. The left knee resting on the floor. Now from here, slowly take your hips forward and down. And then we're going to allow that right knee to tilt out slightly, maybe 15 degrees. Now keeping the knee at approximately that angle, walk your hands around to the right, and then walk your hands around to the left, or forwards or backwards. Think about sinking the left hip below the right hip, or lift the left hip up and sink the right hip lower than the left hip. And then let the knee drop over a little further. And again, experiment, feeling your way around, walking your hands into new positions, shifting your weight, shifting your hips, creating variety and complexity in all the different stretches and sensations you're feeling in the hips, outer thighs, and buttocks. And then lean your knee almost over to the floor. And again, see if you can find a couple different positions for your hands where you can support your weight and lean into a little deeper stretch. 2 or 3 breaths. If it feels good, you can even come down onto your elbows. Take a breath or two. Come back up onto your hands and then bring the knee back to vertical. Step the knee back, set it on the pad if you need support. And then we're going to take the left foot, step through. Lunge slowly, letting your hips come forward and down. Let the left knee tilt out away from you slightly, 15 degrees. And then keeping that angle, begin to experiment. Walking your hands to the left or to the right, or forward or backward. Feeling out your own movements that create healthy, pleasant sensations. Allow the knee to come over at about 45 degrees and continue to explore. Use each exhale to help calm and relax the mind and the body. Then lean the leg over, almost touching the knee to the floor. Walk your hands to the left. Brace with your arms. Shift your hips around a little. 2 or 3 more breaths. Over time and over practice, we want to increase the variety and complexity of the stretches we're able to create, as long as they feel healthy and pleasant. Take a breath or 2 to finish. And then bring the knee back to vertical, coming back up onto your hands, step the knee back. Child's pose. Take your knees wide, feet together. Sink your hips back. Walk your hands forward a little bit. Lower your head. And relax into child's pose. 5 or 10 breaths. Take a breath or 2 to finish. Coming back up to your hands and knees, cat-cow. Couple repetitions. And back to neutral. Now we'll explore moving from low lunge to high lunge and restricting the movement of the hips as we do that. Let me demonstrate. For this, you may want to consider having a folded blanket, padding for the back knee. I'm going to step right foot up, and the back knee is on the floor. And now I'm going to try to straighten the back leg and then set it on the ground again. Now, if you'll watch the hips, as I straighten the leg, notice how the hips come up. And as I set the knee on the ground, notice how the hips come down. Okay? So I want you to do the same thing, but without letting the hips rise and fall as much. So watch the hips. I'm going to straighten the back leg, and I keep the hips down. Now I'm going to reach the knee to the floor, but I'm going to pull the hips up. So instead of this, it's this. Okay? So let's try that. Come into a lunge, step the right foot forward, left foot back. Lift up and place your hands on your thighs. Let the back knee rest on the floor. Now the first repetition from low lunge to high lunge, don't worry about the hips, just notice how they rise when you straighten the back leg and sink when you touch the knee to the floor. So when you're ready, straighten the back leg, hold for a moment, and then put the knee on the ground. Okay. Now this time, try to minimize the movement in the hips. Sink your hips as you're straightening the back leg. Lift your hips as you're reaching the knee down to the floor. 2 more times. Straighten the back leg. Touch it to the floor. 1 more time. And then rotate to the opposite side. Set the knee on the floor. Step the other foot up into your lunge. Start in a low lunge. And just to warm up, allow the hips to move on the first repetition. Straighten the back leg. Let the hips lift up a little. And let the hips sink as you bring the knee down. Now minimize the movement of the hips. Straighten the back leg and sink the hips. And then find the floor without letting the hips drop. 2 more times. One more time. And then come down with both knees and camel. Quarter rotation to the right. Right hand on sacrum or reach for the foot. Float the left arm. Take your hips forward, take your chest up. It's a slight rotation. And then breathing into that. Couple more breaths. Come up. Rotate to the opposite side. Draw the left shoulder in and down, chest forward and up. And then breathing into camel. Couple more breaths. Cat cat cow. Standing forward bend. Tuck the toes. Walk the hands in close to the knees. Lift the hips. And either place your hands on your thighs, coming up a little higher, especially if you have hamstring issues or low back issues. If it feels good to lean in to a deeper stretch, that's fine. Both knees bent slightly. Bend the left knee a little more, stretch the right leg. Bend the right knee a little more, stretch the left leg. Go side to side. One of the main reasons we want to keep the hamstrings healthy and lengthen the hamstrings is to permit greater freedom of movement in the pelvis, and specifically rotating the pelvis. Anterior and posterior rotation. So with both knees bent, lift the tailbone, sink the belly, and sink into the hamstring stretch. 2 or 3 breaths. One more breath. Bend your knees a little more. If you can find the floor comfortably with your fingertips, that's fine. And this time we're going to cross the left foot in front of the right and then over and set it down. So we've crossed our ankles. Both knees bent slightly, and then lift the tailbone, sink the belly. And notice that it'll feel a little different on the left and the right side. Where you feel the intensity the most in the hip, try to adjust so it's a pleasant, healthy stretch. Take a breath or two. See if you can make adjustments to bring the stretch into the outer hip, outer thigh, or buttocks. You can experiment with walking your hands a little left or right, leaning a little left or right, but primarily lifting through the sit bone, sinking the belly. Switch legs. Come back to center, cross the opposite foot over. Once the ankles are crossed, bend the knees slightly, not much. Sink the belly, lift the tailbone. On the side that you're feeling a little bit of extra stretch on, try to exaggerate that by lifting that sit bone. And again, experimenting, shifting around, trying to find just the perfect way of drawing more action into the outer hip. And take 2 or 3 breaths. Come back to center. 2 or 3 breaths with a symmetrical stretch. And then rolling up to Dandasana, mountain pose. Feet hip width, outer edges parallel. Anchor the big toe, flare little toes wide. Sink the tailbone and lift the chest and firm the abdomen. Let go of most of the effort without losing those 3 actions. Turn your attention to the breath. Vini Yoga Sun Salutation. Bring your hands to prayer. Only 2 positions, overhead stretch and a forward bend. On an inhale, sweep up. If you want to add a little back bend, you can. On the exhale, reach the hips back, release either halfway, supporting your weight with your hands on thighs or all the way. As you roll up, when the wrist approaches the kneecap, buckle the knees and continue up. Straighten the legs, lift the arms, chest forward and up, shoulders back. Now, with your breath. As you breathe in, roll up, buckle the knees, stack the vertebra, overhead stretch. On the exhale, reach the hips back slightly, release into a forward bend. Five or 10 more repetitions. Focus on the quality of your breathing. Adjust the movement to synchronize with the breath. Couple more times. And back to center. Trikonasana. Stepping the legs wide. Make sure your hips still have a little play. Turn the left foot out, 90 degrees. Lift the right heel, take it wide, set it down. Spread the toes on both feet, lift through the arches. Shifting your hips to the right, tilting the pelvis. Be a tendency to lean forward. So imagine both feet, both hips, both shoulder blades touching an imaginary wall. And maintain that alignment. Left hand can rest on your thigh or shin or floor, wherever you're comfortable. Try to maintain the length of the low rib cage. Roll the shoulders back. If you have any neck issues, find a position for the head that feels natural and comfortable. And if you're okay with the rotation, you're welcome to turn the head to look up. Keep the base of the throat drawn in, the back of the neck long. 2 or 3 breaths. One more breath. Rotating to the second side. Turn the right foot out 90 degrees. Lift the left heel, take it wide, set it down. Spread the toes, lift the arches, shift your hips to the left, tilt the pelvis. Try to draw a safe, pleasant stretch into the back of the right thigh. Remember, if you pick up any stretch in the back of the knee, bend the knee just enough to keep the stretch in the belly of the muscle. Keep the low rib cage long. Hand on hip or float the left arm. Any position for the head that works for you, rotating if it feels safe and healthy. 3 or 4 more slow, smooth, steady breaths. One more breath. Coming up, turning both feet pigeon-toed, release into a forward bend. Take a few breaths here. Step your feet together. Roll back up to standing. We'll be working next with angle, and then from angle, revolved triangle. And for this next pose, a chair can be very helpful for most people. You could also use a railing, or you can use a wall. If you're using a chair, you can use the back of the chair. If your chair has an arm, You can turn it sideways using the arm, and then you can turn it and use the seat of the chair. So you got 3 different heights on most chairs. To start with, keep our chest fairly high up. So I'm going to use the back of the chair, or a railing, or a table works well. And you're going to step the right foot forward, maybe about 6 inches away from whatever this is you're holding on to. And you're going to take the left leg back as if you're going to do Trikonasana. Same alignment. Then we're going to rotate the hips to face whatever it is you're resting your hands on. So bring the left hip around until your pelvis faces forward. Now there are 2 ways to come into this. The wrong way is to bring your chest forward and down. That causes compression in the leg. Although you end up going further into the pose, it may look better. You're creating more problems than you're curing, and you lose some of the benefit as well. So instead of thinking about taking your upper body forward and down, think about taking your right sit bone back and up. So if you watch the difference, this is what you don't want to do. This is what you do want. Reach that hip back. Sink the belly, lift the tailbone. And then keep your spine in its natural S-curve. Lengthen the spine, keep the heart open. Now, as you sink the belly and lift the left sit bone, you're looking for just the right amount of stretch in the right leg. Again, if you feel it moving down into the fascia behind the knee, bend the knee just enough that you keep the stretch in the belly of the muscle. 3 or 4 breaths. The right hip is coming forward, the left sit bone is reaching back, the tailbone is lifting, the belly is sinking, the spine is maintaining neutrality. And come up, step the left foot up, step the right leg back. Rotate to face forward with the hips. Reach the left sit bone back. Sink the belly, lift the tailbone, and bring the right hip forward. And then lengthen the spine, open the heart. And then breathing into this. Two or 3 breaths. And coming back upright. Now we're ready to add a twist with the revolving triangle. So I'm going to start off with the same position. Only I'm going to shift the support, or myself, so that I'm lined up a little bit differently. So I'm going to step the right foot up, left foot back, but I'm going to move the chair over to my right a little bit, so that as I twist, the chair and the support will be there for me. Rotate the hips, reach the right hip back, lift the tailbone, sink the belly, lengthen the spine. Try not to collapse forward with the chest. Try to keep the chest elongated. And then with your left hand, either rest your hand on the back of the chair or rest your forearm on the back of the chair. With the right shoulder, shrug the shoulder, and then let the shoulder draw you into your twist, letting the head follow. Start with your left hand, with your right hand on the hip, and roll the shoulder. Find the shoulder blade, draw it into the spine, down the back, and then, as an afterthought, float the arm out. Try to take most of the weight off of the left arm, so you aren't leaning on it, you're just using it to steady yourself. 3 or 4 breaths. Engage through the legs strong. One more breath. Come back to center, rotate. Step the left foot up, step the right foot back. Move your chair over to the left. Rotate your hips. Face the chair with your hips. Reach the left sit bone back and up. Sink the belly. Lengthen the chest. Take your right hand or your right forearm to the chair. Put your left hand on your hip, shrug the shoulder, roll that left shoulder back. Find the left shoulder blade, draw it into the spine, down the back, and then float the arm. Try not to rely on the chair too much. Think of it as just to help you balance rather than to support your weight. Breathe into this. 3 or 4 more breaths. Stabilize by pressing through the legs into the floor, as if you're trying to stretch your sticky mat with your feet. Couple more breaths. And then coming out of the twist. And then step both legs back until you can come down with your chest parallel to the floor, resting your hands on the bar or the back of the chair. Sink the chest, lift the inner armpits, lift the shoulder blades, and sink the chest. Two or three more breaths. One more breath. And coming back up. And if you don't need your chair for Warrior 1 and 2, just set it to one side. Virabhadrasana 2. Step your feet wide. Turn the right foot out 90 degrees. Turn the left foot in at 60. This time bend the right knee. Stop when the knee is directly above the heel, and if that's easy, go a little wider, lunge a little deeper, and then bring your shoulders up square with your hips. Float the arms, sink the shoulders, open the heart, turn just your head. Now try to spiral both legs if you remember how from a previous lesson. Lift the pelvic floor, firm the abdomen from the workshop on the bandhas. And take 3 or 4 more breaths. One more breath. Switch sides. Turn the right foot out. Turn the left foot in. Bend the right knee. Square up your shoulders. Straighten the back leg. Strengthen the back leg. Sink into that back hip. Spiral the legs, opening through the hips and the groin. Float the arms, drop the shoulders, open the heart, turn your head. Gazing out over the left fingertips. Two or three breaths. One more breath. Turn your feet in. Step your feet together. Take a moment to breathe. We'll be starting off with a low lunge. If you need a blanket, or some padding for your back knee. Take just a moment to set that up. You'll put the padding towards the back third of your mat. And we'll step the right foot forward, set the left knee on the floor. Now we want the knee to be directly above the heel. If that is easy, walk your foot away from you until it's a little bit difficult, but you can still do it. If you get your knee put too far away, you can't get to vertical. Just bring it in enough that you can. Now from here, we're going to come into Virabhadrasana 1, but with the back knee on the floor. Rotate your hips to face straight ahead. Bringing the left hip forward, reaching the right hip back. Lift the pelvic floor, draw the abdomen back, lift your chest, float your arms out to the side, and if you feel steady with balance, float overhead. And if you start to get a little wobbly, take your arms back out to the side again. Now from here, you're going to try to straighten the back leg, lift the left knee and straighten the left leg without letting the hips lift. They'll probably need to come up a little bit, resist that to a minimum. When you're ready, straighten the back leg. Virabhadrasana 1. Now find the floor without letting your hips sink. Keep working the pose, chest forward and up, shoulders back and down. One more time. Straighten the back leg, keeping the hips down. Find the floor without letting the hips sink. One more time. And then rotate. Lift both knees off the ground. Keep rotating and set the right knee on the floor. Shift your blanket back if you need support or padding. Start with low lunge. Tuck the toes on the back foot. Bring your belly back. Lift the pelvic floor. Draw the abdomen back. Lift the chest. Mula Bandha, Uddiyana Bandha, Jalandhara from the yoga class a few weeks ago. Float the arms out or overhead. Pull the belly back. Take your chest forward and up. Shoulders back and down. And then to make it interesting, lift the back knee without letting the hips rise as much. Try to straighten the back leg. Keep pulling the navel back. Find the floor while lifting the hips higher. Straighten the leg while sinking the hips. 2 more times. There may be some rise and fall in the hips. That's fine. Just minimize it. 1 more time. And then coming back down, cat-cow. Back to neutral. One more standing pose. Extended lateral angle and then adding a rotation. Tuck the toes, walk the hands in, lift the knees, standing forward bend, take a breath or two. And then rolling up to standing. So this will be our last standing pose. And both of these poses are challenging. So if you have a block, you might have that handy, but I'll also show you a way of making it easier without using the block. So if you have a block, just keep it where you can grab it if you need it. Step your feet wide as if you're going to do Virabhadrasana 2. Turn the left foot out 90 degrees, lift the back heel, take it wide, set it down. bend the knee, walk wider if you need to, lunge a little deeper if you're able to. Square up your shoulders, Virabhadrasana 2, take a breath or two. Now for extended lateral, we're going to try and really lengthen the rib cage, and that means getting your hip and your shoulder further apart. So if both your hip and shoulder move at the same time together, there's no stretch there. You have to reach your hip to the left as you reach your shoulder to the right, elongating the rib cage. Now either place your forearm on your thigh or take your block on its end, side flat, or come to the floor. For a lot of you though, just putting your forearm on the knee will give you plenty of action. Now with the left arm, you're going to put your palm in front of you and then extend it past your head and straighten it all the way away from you. Turn the thumb up and let the skin on the back of your arm roll away from your ear. Draw the shoulder blade, the left shoulder blade back, and then tuck your chin and then turn to look up. Now if you get tired, lean on your left arm, on your right arm, and if you have any strength left, take the weight out of this arm and use your core. 3 more breaths. 1 more breath. And coming up, rotating. Turn the right foot out, left foot in. Lunge. Virabhadrasana 2. Take a breath or two. Take the block in your left hand if you're using it. And you can bring it to the inside or outside, whichever makes more sense to you. Or you can bring your hand to the floor, or you can rest your forearm on the thigh. Take the right hand, bring it in front of your face, palm down, extend it past the head and extend it till it's straight. Turn the thumb up and roll the skin in the back of your arm away from your ear. Draw the shoulder, the right shoulder blade back. Tuck your chin and look up. And then to the degree that you're able to, take weight out of the left arm. If you get tired, let the left arm support you. Couple more breaths. One more breath. And then come up, turn your feet pigeon-toed, and release. Couple breaths. Stretch the exhale. Step the feet together, roll back up. So now basically same pose but with a twist. For most people, the first version is going to be more than challenging enough, and for those of you that do this pose regularly, you're welcome to go into a deeper expression. Step your feet apart. Last standing pose for the class. Turn the left foot out, turn the right foot in. Virabhadrasana 2, and then rotate into Virabhadrasana 1. Now, we want to maintain length this time on the left side of the rib cage. So lift through that left shoulder and really lengthen the left side as you begin to rotate, twisting to the right. Place your forearm on your thigh. If that's too easy, you can take the block to the outside of your foot. Or you can take your hand to the ground. For most people though, forearm on the thigh. Place your right hand on your sacrum, shrug the right shoulder, roll the right shoulder back, draw the shoulder blade together and down, and then open the chest. And then either keep your hand there or float the arm up towards the sky and try to twist. Keep the legs straight and strong. Again, take weight out of the left forearm if you're able to support your core. 2 more breaths. One more breath. In this position, bring your lower back knee slowly to the floor, and then straighten the back leg up again, and then come up and out. Rotate. Take your block with you if you were using it. Turn the left foot out, right foot in. Virabhadrasana 2. Virabhadrasana 1. Lengthen the right side of the rib cage as you begin your rotation. Put your forearm on your thigh, or you can use a namaste position if you prefer. Those of you that are more advanced are welcome to use the block or to bring your hand down to the floor. Left hand on the sacrum, stroke the shoulder, roll the left shoulder back. Roll the shoulder blade in and down the back, open the chest. Straighten the back leg, strengthen the back leg, and then float your arm out if you want to. Again, take weight out of the left arm if you want to work harder. Out of the right arm, rather. Again, take weight out of the right arm if you want more of a workout. Now, in this position, try to reach your knee to the floor without letting the hips sink. Try to straighten the back leg without letting them lift. One more time. And coming into relaxing forward bend. Feet wide, turn pigeon toe. Breathe deep, stretch the exhale. 2 or 3 breaths. One more breath. And then coming down onto the floor, working now with the back roll. If you have a roller that you're used to working with, take a moment to use that. Otherwise, a folded blanket will work. Roll from one end. Keep the middle 6 inches as tight as you can. There are instructions on my site for how to make your own back roll and how to use it. But if it gets too intense, unroll the blanket. If it's too easy, roll it up more. Start with the roller under your shoulders. Extend the arms. Lower your head. Adjust until you feel comfortable and safe. If your neck is straining, take a block or folded blanket and put it under your head. On the other hand, if it's comfortable, release the block, let the head sink towards the floor. 3 or 4 breaths. No effort here. Just letting go of any resistance. Use your exhale. One more breath. And then with your knees bent, lift your hips. And then with your legs, push yourself over the top of the roller an inch. Set the hips down. And you should feel the roller has shifted an inch down the spine. Now relax into this new position. Breathe deep. Relax into the exhalation. 3 or 4 breaths. Just letting gravity do all the work for you. One more breath. Lift your hips, push a little further. Take a couple more minutes to finish on your own.
working your way down the length of your spine, one vertebra at a time. In each position, taking a breath or two or three to let go, to relax, to surrender. Five or 10 more breaths. If there's any area you've neglected, just finish up with the roller in that spot. When you're finished, lift your hips, pull the roller out from under you. Set the hips down, keeping the low back long as you do so. And then hug both knees into your chest, rock side to side. We're going to do a variation of cradle that gives us more control and a greater variety of stretches available to us. So put your left foot on the floor, cross your right foot over the left thigh, and then in a regular cradle you reach through and grab your shin, but instead we're going to take the left hand and grab the outside of the foot or the heel, and the right hand we're going to grab the knee. And we're going to keep the left foot on the ground, and we're just going to lift the right foot off the thigh. Now we can move the right foot left to right. We can straighten the leg, we can bend it more, and we can pull the right knee in more or less. And this allows us to create 1,000 different stretches in different areas. So begin to move the foot and the knee. And when you find a position that feels like a stretch that perhaps you don't get very often and that you need, pause for 2 or 3 breaths and just work into that position. Occasionally resume moving, looking for a new area of interest. You find a way of positioning the knee and the foot that creates a stretching sensation over a large surface area, especially if it crosses a joint. Like you feel it in the lower leg and the upper leg, or the upper leg and the buttocks. That's a particularly good area to invest a little time with because you're working in a fascial line. Remember, bending the knee more or straightening the leg a little bit, swinging the knee out or in, pulling the knee in or pushing it away, and then with the other hand, swinging the heel left or right or away or in. 2 or 3 breaths. Switch legs. Bring the right foot to the floor, cross the left foot over the knee. With your right hand, grab the heel or the outer foot, and with your left hand, grab the knee, lift off of the right leg, and then experiment. Take your time as you move. Sometimes if you're moving quickly, you'll miss a valuable stretch. You'll go right past it without even noticing. And moving a little bit more slowly, you'll notice an interesting sensation that you can develop. Breathe deep, stretch the exhale. 5 or 10 more breaths. Couple more breaths. Bring both knees into your chest, rock side to side. And then roll all the way over onto your stomach for Cobra and down dog. This will be our last work, and we won't hold either pose for very long. As you come down into Cobra, try to walk your rib cage forward, away from the pelvis. Lengthen the spine. Shrug the shoulders, roll the shoulders back, reach the chest forward. Press the tops of the feet down. And breathe into Cobra. Two or three more breaths. So last work for the back muscles. If you need a little bit more work, take this last few breaths. One last down dog. Spiral through the arms, spiral the legs, pull the chest through, float the shoulder blades away, lengthen through the spine. Some of you may feel the need for more down dog, so feel free to hold here a little bit longer and to play with this a little more. Those of you that are really wanting to get a little bit more work in on releasing and opening the hips can get a head start with Pigeon Pose. So whenever you decide you're ready to transition, bring the right knee forward. Now when your right foot is on the floor, lift the right knee, move it back a few inches, then walk your hands in closer, lift the left knee and reach it back, walk the left leg back a little bit until you pick up a small stretch in the right hip, outer thigh or buttocks. You can come to your elbows or you can lean. Control the stretch by repositioning the left leg. If you want less stretch, lift the knee and walk it to the left and forward. And if you're ready for a deeper stretch, slide it back into the right. Two or three more breaths. Breathe deep, stretch the exhale. And if it feels good, lean in a little deeper for the last couple of breaths. And then, when you're ready, come back into down dog. Bring the left knee forward. And the left foot touches the floor. Lift the left knee and swing it back a few inches. And then begin walking your right knee back, coming down onto your elbows. Notice how the body's responding. If you need to ease up, walk the right knee to the right and forward. If you realize
Oh, the muscles are releasing and it feels safe and pleasant. Walk your back leg to the left and back. Breathe deep, stretch the exhale. 5 or 10 breaths. Two or three breaths. If it feels good, lean in for the last few breaths. And then, when you're finished, coming into Shavasana. If your low back is feeling a little awkward or vulnerable, keep the knees bent or put support under your knees. And if you're comfortable, extend the legs, feet hip width. Check your feet for symmetry. And then take your arms out to the sides, maybe a 30-degree angle. Draw the shoulder blades together. Lift the head, lengthen the back of the neck, set the head back down. Turn your attention to the breath, stretching the exhale slightly, allowing the rhythm of your breathing to be more wave-like, more fluid. And with each exhale, letting go. See if you can almost hypnotize yourself. Imagine and feel your body get heavier and heavier with each exhale. Your face, neck and shoulders, arms, hands and fingers. Feet, ankles, calves, knees, and thighs. Loosen hips, relax the buttocks. The low back, the belly, the kidneys. The ribs, the chest, the shoulders. The back of the neck, and soften the throat. Give yourself permission, now that you've relaxed a little bit, to adjust, to reposition until you're perfectly satisfied. Take a deep breath. And with an exhale, letting everything fall away. The jaws, the lips, the tongue, the mouth, especially the eyes, the eyeballs, the space behind, between, beneath, and around the eyes. eyebrows, the forehead. Temples soft and hollow. And relaxing the scalp and the crown. And coming back to the breath. Letting go of any effort to breathe, and instead witnessing, experiencing the breath. Now slowly, very easily, begin to stretch and pendiculate. Raising the arms overhead. Stretching the way a cat stretches when it wakes up from a nap. Roll to one side. Take a couple of breaths. Focus now on the inhale. Drawing the breath in such a way that you feel the prana, the life force, the energy returning. And then pushing up to a comfortable seated position. And again, draw the flesh out, reach the sit bones back. Tilt the pelvis and sit up tall. And take a moment just to notice how your hips feel and how the rest of your body feels. I'd like to thank you for joining me this afternoon. I hope you have a wonderful day and week, and I hope you can join us again next week, and we'll be doing a new class next week. Thank you. Namaste.